Hello there, my name's Phil Williams and I would like to welcome you to Audio Angling, the podcast site of fishingfilmsandfacts.co.uk. As far as interviews go, they don't come any more special than this one with the single most successful international coarse angler on the entire planet, multiple world champion Alan Scotthorne. Just as we were arranging to do this link-up, you was about to fly out to Poland for the 2013 World Championships. So what better place to start than with a quick recap of how that event went?
The first thing really that needs to be talked about is that the venue was supposed to be very, very difficult. I think we were all a little bit shocked that it was in Poland because a couple of years before we had the European Championships on another water in Poland and to be honest it was catastrophic. The fishing was terrible. And we'd already heard that this venue, maybe a kilo, had win sections, so we were probably a little bit disappointed to be going on the Zaransky Canal as such, because we just felt that, again, it might be a really difficult match. But as it turned out, it was probably one of the better or one of the best matches that we've ever fished. I mean, the result was fantastic. I mean, to score 7 points on the first day were unbelievable. I mean, we won 4 sections below the bridge. Was just fantastic. I mean, unbelievable result, really. And to go on and win a gold medal there with the team and also have second and third. I mean, Steve Hemingway was second individual, I was third individual, both scoring 2 points each. And of course, my good friend who I fish with quite a lot, Didier Delanoy, he's coming to my house next week, won the individual as well. So we were a fantastic event, really, for Drennan Team England and both myself and Steve Hemingway to get individual medals. Fantastic.
So how many titles is that now? Perhaps you should talk us through some of your incredible CV.
The list is growing, there's no doubt about that. I mean, I think we've won 8 times with the team now. I've been involved for 8 gold medals, and I wouldn't like to say how many silvers and bronze medals we've won. I mean, I've been involved in the team for 20 years, so I think this year, I don't know if it's my 19th or 20th year this year. I'm nearly sure it's my 20th year involved with the team as such. So in that time to win 8 times is pretty incredible, really. And of course for myself, I mean, 5 individual gold medals and then a third this year is something that is difficult to sort of get your head round, really. I mean, in that time I've also been 4th on, I think, 2 occasions, maybe even 3 occasions. So, just missed out on a medal as such.
And I believe that between yourself and your wife Sandra, who I'm going to be talking to separately later, and your son Oliver, you're now in the process of building a coarse match angling dynasty.
Yeah, it's a bit of a funny thing, really. I mean, me and Sandra got together about 15 years ago. I mean, I split up with my ex-wife. We just didn't get on too well. But, of course, I got together with Sandra, and through the fishing, we sort of hit it off very well. I mean, we work very well as a team when we go fishing. Often when Sandra's been fishing at world level, I've run Sandra's section, and when I've been fishing, Sandra has run my section. So we work very well as a team, and Sandra winning twice in the Ladies' World Championships, and I think 5 times they've won with the team while she's been involved as well. We've got a very, very good CV between us, but of course also Oliver is also fishing as well, and he fished the first time when he was 15 for the junior team, and that was in Serbia, on a canal in Serbia, and they won a gold medal, and Oliver was 3rd individual. And since then, I mean, now he's 22, he's really struggled to get back into the team because it just fell really awkward for Oliver, because every year that they're on after, it sort of stepped up to the under-23 team. So it made it difficult because he were only 16, but his age made it so he would, I think, just a month out of qualifying to fish for the juniors again. So it made it really difficult to get back in the team for him. But this year he made the team to fish in Rieux in France in the under-23s, which is actually his last year this year. But unfortunately, he didn't get to actually fish. It was reserved for this event. But again, the team won they won a silver medal. They were second overall. And, of course, I think they also had a third, also individually. Rory was third individual. So they had a very, very good event. So Oliver's sort of followed in the footsteps of us and won medals at world level, which is fantastic.
Projecting that forward in time, when he does become eligible for the senior squad, what do you reckon of his prospects there?
That's a difficult one, because there's a lot of good youngsters out there that's sort of knocking on the door of making the way into the full squad. I mean, we've already got Lee Kerry and Callum Dix who came in to the European team last year, or this year, should I say. And for Oliver to sort of step up in the future to sort of make the world team, he's got rather a lot of work to do to catch up with some of the lads that's involved now. I'm not saying it's an impossibility, but for Oliver, at the moment, he spends a lot of time at work and he's only managing to get fishing sort of on a Sunday and maybe once in the week. So it's a little bit more difficult for him. But in the future, if he keeps fishing and sort of maybe improves with his job where he can fish Saturday and Sunday and build up some more results, it's not an impossibility to get into the full squad in his later years, there's no doubt.
Now, as you know, I was chatting to Dick Clegg last week, and he said that his one remaining ambition was to set up an academy to bring match anglers through at all levels. What are your thoughts on that idea? And might it even be something that you could contribute to when you retire from international duties?
Well, if you actually look at it now, both Lee Kerry and Callum Dix came up through the international junior events, through the under-16s and the under-23s, and they've now progressed into the European Championships team. I think for anybody now who's not involved in the junior type events, I mean, there may be somebody come through, but I think that unless you've been involved in that side of things, I think it's very, very difficult to sort of get into the world squad, because all these lads have got now international experience and they're all fishing the right competitions as well. They're all involved in census challenge type matches where we're fishing to international rules in this country. So Dick's setting up an academy as such. I'm not really sure how that'd work, because the fact that we've got these youngsters coming through the international events is the sort of the kiddies that's going to make the squad in the future. I'm absolutely positive about that. I mean, we've got some very, very good young anglers involved in our Barnsley team that every one of them has been involved at junior level at some time.
On the subject of young anglers and progression through the ranks, what are your earliest memories of getting into fishing, and in particular into coarse match fishing?
We're going back a long time now, because I'm 51 now, so... But, yeah, my early days in fishing, I was very, very lucky that my father, I mean, he does a little bit of fishing still now. I mean, my dad's approaching 80, and he's very fit, and he still gets out fishing. He does a little bit of trout fishing and things, but he was very good in supporting me in the early days when I started fishing competitions. I mean, my brother, who's a couple of years older than me, actually got me into fishing. We used to go fishing on a little trout stream down from where I lived, and he got me into sort of catching an odd trout on this stream, and then we sort of progressed, or I progressed, and him as well. We started fishing matches on a local pit pond, Rockingham Pit Pond, which is in close to Birdwell, near Barnsley. And we both had quite a bit of success. We moved up to club level and started fishing club matches, and I can remember winning 5 out of the 6 club matches at club level when I first started fishing, and that, a lot of the older anglers didn't particularly like that as such, winning everything that was sort of in front of me at club level. I then moved up to fishing matches on Worsborough Reservoir, which again was just down from Birdwell where I lived, and I could almost walk there, and did often walk there with my equipment when I couldn't get a lift there as such. But I started fishing the matches there, and quickly got noticed with Dick Clegg and Dennis White and Tommy Pickering, who formed the Barnsley Blacks, and they invited me to start fishing with them, which at that time they were an up-and-coming team as such. And I progressed from there to start fishing some of the bigger matches, and probably the start of my England career were winning the UK Championships 2 year on the trot, and I also won the European Super Cup that were based at Home Pier Point. I won it the first year it was run. I think that were in 1990, and then in 1991 I also won the first day's event, but I finished 11th on the second one that they run, and made a little bit of a mistake on the second day match, to be honest. But that sort of catapulted me into the limelight and the sort of grounds to get me into the England team.
Not being either a freshwater or a competition angler myself, you'll have to forgive my lack of knowledge on how the CV and selection process works. So how do prospective internationals get themselves noticed?
Well, there isn't really a selection process. What happens is, and has happened since Dick Clegg sort of took over the reins as manager, what he did, he watched the results all the time and watched the anglers fishing quite regularly, and based his knowledge of the anglers on picking a squad for a venue that were coming up in the future. And I think the fact that he went down this route, instead of using trials like a lot of the overseas teams use, he actually selected a team, so he could keep that team almost together and make just maybe one change a year. Even if he did, sometimes he kept the squad for 2 or 3 years at a time, everybody together and working together. And by doing that, they built up more knowledge of sort of international fishing. And this made it, I'm sure that this made our team a lot better when Dick started. I mean, I don't think he won on the first occasion that he had a team, but I think on the second occasion they managed to win with the England team, and that sort of set the ball rolling and the standard. I mean, Dick, I'm not sure how many times, Dick won with the team as such, but it were quite a number of times, and he were a fantastic manager, and that sort of carried on. I mean, Mark Downs and Mark Addy now, who took over from Dick, picked the team in the same way, so every year you can get a top flight squad. Where sometimes what happens with the trials type way of picking teams, you can get odd anglers coming through that's maybe not as good as some of the top anglers. So all the time we have a full, good quality team, and also a team that builds a relationship that work together very, very well. That's a big thing. We all trust each other in the England team, and we all work together to get the end result.
To what extent can a squad and ultimately a team differ between competitions and venues, according to individual specialist requirements from different individuals to give the team an edge?
I think that's one thing that the England team has got now. We've got a team of very, very good all-round anglers, and anybody sort of wanting to come into the team has got to have a very broad aspect of fishing. If you look at the 2 young lads who's made the progression into the team now, Lee Kerry and Callum Dix, what they've both got is, attributes that they can lend themselves to anything. They can fish with flat floats, they can fish with bolognese, they can fish long poles, they've caught bleak, they've done a lot of different aspects of fishing to get to where they are. And now, being involved in the squad, they're working even harder now to try to keep up with everything.
Another aspect of fishing for your country in big events is the preparation and planning that must go in. Obviously, the match venue will have been researched, but on match day, conditions can be very different to those on the practice days. so squad members will presumably need to be versatile to cope. So are there any specific targets, tasks or requirements given to team members from the onset? And under what circumstances, if any, can team orders be ignored or adapted if that adaptation brings a chance of individual glory?
A lot of the venues that we go to are venues that's regularly fished. So you can always gather a small amount of knowledge about each venue. I mean, this year was slightly different. The venue in Poland is not a regularly fished venue, so there was a sparse amount of information. But what the England team do, we always travel for 2 weeks for an event. It's just a standard that we've sort of set ourselves, that we go for 1 week where we fish together and fish away from the match length. You're not allowed within 500 metres of the match length. But often you can fish past 500 metres on the venue and get a feel for the type of fishing. It's not always relevant to what happens on the week's practice, because when you get 200 anglers feeding for 5 days before a competition, it always changes. So it's not usually too relevant to what happens on the week's practice. But that extra week just gives you a chance to make sure your hooks, your lines, your floats, and the general feel of the water is already with you before you start the week's practice as such. So the week's practice then is made slightly easier, as on the Monday you're not trying to sort your equipment out. Your equipment's generally sorted and we can work on the tactics for that particular venue. When we've learnt over the years to sort of ignore what happens on that first week, because, usually the match length with the pressure and everything else is totally different. And we've had times when we've caught up to £100 practising off the match length, and sort of £10 to £15 been brilliant on the match length. So we've learnt that it's not particularly relevant, but what we do use it for is just to get us equipment right for the venue and get a feel of the sort of surroundings.
Rather than specific anglers being given targets then, are targets set perhaps for particular sections, or is it the same game plan for everyone?
No, we're not really set anything. I mean, Mark Downs and Mark Addy trusts the lads implicitly. Obviously, because we've generally been there for a week, what he does, he gives us a open hand on the first day to fish how we think the venue is going to be. And of course, there's always something comes of that, because obviously we've been there for a week. We've got some idea of a starting sort of where we want to start. So he gives us an open hand on the first day. And then from there, we work on tactics. We discard things, we bring things in, and we start to manipulate to what we want for the weekend. So it's literally a full group working. Mark Downs and Mark Addy never ever dictate to us what they want us to do. We start off in a manner where it's quite open, and then we start to discard things and bring things in. So by the weekend, normally, we have some kind of plan.
What sort of things at this level then make the difference between a good course match angler and a great course match angler?
There's several things that's happened over the years. The squad that we've got now, you feel like you can rely on every angler to get the best from the situation and the peg that they've got. All of the anglers are used to fishing under pressure, and pressure's a massive, massive thing when you're fishing, because often some of the waters that we fish, you may have to fish 2-3 hours, catching very little, and then catch odd big fish. So you need to be very, very strong in your mental approach to fishing, where you've got to know that you're feeding right and that in the end you'll get the result. It's a difficult one. There's some anglers that just suffer badly when they're put under pressure. And the same as I've said, if you look at the squad that we've got now, we've all fished under an immense amount of pressure for quite a number of years. And it's that stand-alone thing that makes a good team, I'm sure. If you've got a set of anglers that you can rely on and can get the best out of the situation, then that's the best you can do.
Do you smoke?
No, none of us smoke.
The reason why I'm asking is that at sea I hate getting petrol from the outboard on my hands in case it taints the bait. I've also heard the same said about nicotine and was wondering what your thoughts are on that particular suggestion.
Well, there's a lot of anglers that do smoke. To be honest, I don't think it makes a massive amount of difference at all. But I don't know, it's a difficult one. I've never asked to fish.
As we've already said, to be as successful as both yourself and Sandra, you need to have great versatility. But presumably, you also have specialities at which you particularly excel. What aspects then of the match scene see you at your most comfortable and confident?
I think the only way you can sort of portray this, if you go to a venue where there's a lot of fish, then you're most relaxed to start with, because you can catch fish usually quite freely from the start. If it's a venue where you're fishing for odd big fish, I mean, we've fished quite a few of these type venues. I mean, looking back at maybe Slovakia and Italy and one or two places where you've had to catch big fish, there's quite an amount of pressure on you then, because you have to be patient. And, patience during a World Championships is something that, I don't know, it can't be taught to you as such. You've got to feed correctly and then be patient and wait for the fish. If you're in and out all the time and not being patient, you're not going to catch these fish. So that's the only way I can sort of portray how you can be most comfortable. If you're catching a lot of fish, then that's when you can relax and get into a routine and a rhythm. If it's more difficult, then the pressure does mount. I mean, I don't know whether people watch the Fishermania on the telly with me and William Raisin fishing an international competition at Cudmore. There were probably more pressure on me that day because I weren't catching. I was struggling for a big part of the match and then come good in the end, where William caught steadily through the match and built up a good weight. But that day, you felt like all the pressure was on me, not on William. Very strange.
You've mentioned the need to feed right on a couple of occasions so far. Define for us what you mean by getting the feeding right.
A very, very difficult one to define, because obviously when we're practicing at world level, this is what you're working on all the time. The ground bait that you use, the bait that you use, how you use it through the 4-hour match. Every venue is different, and every way that you feed is different. I mean, there's so many scenarios that we've had through the years that if you were to make a list of the different ways that we'd fed on different venues, the list would be, you'd want several toilet rolls to get it on, because every way that you fish is slightly different.
So what's your starting point then? Does it involve, say, a set routine with trial and error, or is it more of an intuitive thing?
It's just practice and bouncing ideas off each other, really, and sort of building up to getting the right technique for that venue.
What about favoured types of waters and techniques? Have you got any preferences, or do you just take them as they come?
Again, all the venues are different, and sometimes, you can look back and think, we went to Hungary expecting it to be an out-and-out pole match in 2007. When we arrived there, the conditions were perfect, 27 degrees. We caught a lot of fish on the first practice week. Come the match, it was late-ish September. It had been moved on a little bit into September. Come the match, it was 5 degrees. So it dropped 22 degrees in a week. And all the fishing were all waggler. It were virtually all waggler fishing. There weren't hardly a fish caught on a pole all week and during the weekend. So, again, it's conditions and change and what happens with the fishing that dictates how you fish.
Throughout your time at international level, who's been your main competition from within the England squad? And also, Who's been your biggest international rival?
Well, in the squad there isn't. We're all competing against each other when we're practicing, because obviously, well, not obviously, it's a 6-man team and 5 fish. So Mark Downs and Mark Addy and Dick Clegg in the past have had to pick 5 out of 6. Now, there's always one angler that just struggles slightly more than the others. So, some venues suit some anglers slightly more than others. And sometimes circumstances you can just, I know it sounds silly, but even in 6 pegs, often you get an end of the box which is slightly worse than the other. It's never quite exactly even. So we're all competitive against each other. It's just as nature. If we weren't competitive, we wouldn't be in the team. It's as simple as that. But the rest of the teams, years ago, there were only probably 4 or 5, maybe 6 teams that were at top at tree. So there weren't so many competing teams. So it was quite easy to finish in a good position. Now, it's a lot more difficult. Even teams like Russia, Russia won the European Championships 2 or 3 years ago. And when I look back to 1994, the Russians, when they fished at Home Pier Point, had got literally no equipment. They were almost sat on buckets fishing with whips to fish a World Championships. But you look at all the teams now, there's very little to choose between all of the teams. So the competitiveness now is very fierce at world level, and anybody who travels to watch a World Championships or is fortunate enough to watch one, all the anglers are capable of beating each other. So then it's, you really have to be on top of your game to win.
It's a bit like World Cup football, I suppose, in that all those making it into the finals will be good. But still, there are bound to be standout teams, or in this case standout squads, which most of the other squads are going to fear. So which have been the most consistent, or if you like, most feared squads over your time on the international scene?
Over the latter sort of years, Hungary have been a very strong team. Italy, of course, have been strong throughout all the World Championships that I've fished. France also had a few years where they sort of went, I don't know, everything seemed to go wrong for them, but they've come back into the forefront again. Teams like Poland, Slovakia, Slovenia, Serbia, all these teams now, they're all very strong. Belgians, they're all strong teams that can all take points off you in a competition. The field now is much more strong than what it used to be. For us, I think, even looking forward to next year, the World Championships is in Croatia. And it's on a fast-flowing water where it'll be flat-float fishing. And the amount of flat-float fishing we do as a team is next to none in this country. So again, we'll certainly not be favourites to win in Croatia next year because, it's quite alien fishing for us, to be honest. But I'm sure we'll be up there and do well. But whether we can win, I think it'll be, a difficult task, to be honest.
And who in any of the England squads that you was a member of had more promise or ability than the results actually suggest?
I would probably say Stevie Gardner. Stevie Gardner, he's won individual medals. He's had a second and he's had a third, to my knowledge. Stevie Gardner has been, now I think he's 60 this year. And his fishing ability and his results in the team, the number of times he's finished in the top 10 individually is phenomenal. I think he's been involved 25 years in the team. And his results really do stand out. He's been phenomenal for the team. But his individual results, he's had odd chance to win, I'm sure, in the time he's been in the squad, but never quite managed to convert and win it individually. But Steve is just a points machine. He's really sort of been at top of his game all through his angling career, and still is, there's no doubt about that.
As I said earlier, I'm no coarse match angler, but I dabble occasionally in freshwater when it's too rough to go to sea in the boat, and over the years even I've noticed changes which must be having an effect on preparing up-and-coming coarse anglers for international duties. In particular, the way in which big local matches now seem to have lost their popularity. Also the preoccupation these days with small still waters and carp. So is any of this having an effect on both the pool and the quality of individuals that will be available for international duties in the future?
There's been quite a lot of things said that in the future we'll not have a strong squad because a lot of our fishing now is based around commercial fishing. But to be honest, I've got a completely different opinion to this, because if you actually look at it, not all of the World Championships are based around bloodworm and joker type fishing. I mean, this year in Poland on the Zoransky Canal, it was out and out bloodworm for roach and skimmers. Now, if you actually look at it, a lot of the venues that we fish, I mean, we fished at Merida in Spain where you had to catch carp and bigger fish. So our sort of circuit is perfect because we're learning all aspects of fishing all the time. The only thing that we're a little bit short of is maybe river type fishing because we haven't got a lot of that. But where big fish are involved, we're very good. Where small fish are involved, like roach and skimmers, where bream are involved, we're very, very good. We just lack a little bit of experience on rivers, and that's up to us to sort of travel and do more fishing abroad. And that's what I've done in my angling career. I mean, I've travelled to Germany and fished on big type rivers over there. I've fished a lot in Ireland, on bigger rivers in Ireland, and this is what a lot of the sort of up-and-coming anglers need to do. If they want to fish for England, they've got to diversify and travel and try to fish different waters and make sure that their all-round angling ability is very, very good. And when you actually look at it, we've got, a number of anglers like that now. So maybe our circuit, apart from lacking a little bit in rivers, is probably one of the best in the world because, if you look at myself, I mean, I've fished for carp quite a lot through the summertime, but now I've moved on to the canals where I'm bloodworm fishing through the winter time. So I've got a mix of fishing. And also I've been abroad 2 or 3 times and fished with wagglers and sliders and all sorts of different aspects of the sport through the year. And this is what the anglers have to do all the time, there's no doubt.
Obviously, with all the individual and team successes you've already mentioned, the national squad can't be doing too much wrong. That said, good or bad, how does what we do compare to the way they do things in other countries?
Well, I think if you look at the England team, in every category, we are the number 1 team. I think every category. I know the girls won again this year, and I think that's probably put them as number 1 team. Obviously, we won. We're firmly cemented as the number 1 team to beat. I would have thought the feeder team as well up there. So all aspects of fishing we are very, very good at, and at the top of the tree as far as international competitions. So we're not doing a lot wrong. I mean, on the continent, they do things slightly different. A lot of the teams have qualifying matches to qualify for the World Championships, and I think some of them, I mean, maybe Italy, have got a selection where they can select who they want from the sort of competitions that they fish. But a lot of the teams, same as I say, I think they're probably missing out on having more experience by using a similar team all the time, like Mark Downs and Mark Addy does.
Despite both yourself and Stander obviously wanting the very best for each other, at times there must also have been a degree of friendly rivalry for bragging rights within the house. So what's that been like?
It's been an interesting journey, to be honest, because, several times I've drawn next to Sandra, and when you're next to Sandra, you're in a competition. I mean, anybody who's seen Sandra fish and watched Sandra, she's very, very good. And she's hard to beat. Very hard to beat. I mean, I can remember one particular match I drew next to Sandra in Ireland. We drew peg 1 and 2 at Petumna on Rogers Island, which was not actually the best end of the actual section that we were on, we were both pretty upset when we drew there, but we got rigged up and got fishing, and as it turned out, it was the better end on the day, and Sandra fished 8 metres of pole, fishing close in, catching roach, and I elected to fish a little bit further out and catch eyebreds and roach, and we had a terrific battle. It was a 5-hour match, and in the end, Sandra had 60 kilos, and I finished up with 60 kilos, 380 grams. I beat her with 380 grams. So, on that particular occasion, it was very nip and tuck. And I've been next to her and she's beat me on a couple of times. I can remember we fished on the Minster pool at Lichfield, and she had 25 kilo, and I caught 23 kilo in a competition. She won the competition on that occasion. She's won some very, very big matches. I mean, I've been to France with her on a Decleat Pêche final, and she were in some really good company. I mean, a couple of really good French anglers, John Desquet, Giles Claudin, were next to her, and she's caught 50 kilo on a slider of bream and won the competition and won £3,500. So, she's won some big matches in her time, and she's very, very strong. Just because she's a woman, she's got arms and legs and, and a brain like everybody else, and she's very hard to beat when she's on some fish.
Actually, you were both world champions in the same year, which must have felt pretty damn good.
Yeah, incredible, really. I mean, you can't think as there's probably been a sort of husband and wife that's both been world champion at the same time in a sport. I mean, it'd be interesting to find out if anybody's ever done that before, but it's not as if we were only fishing against a handful of people. I mean, when you look at the World Championships, there's 200 anglers fishing in the men's event, and again with the lasses, there's 20-odd teams of 5 fishing for the ladies' event. So, for us to both come through and win the individual in the same year is pretty incredible, really.
Can we now go back to your vast catalogue of successes? Which single win gave you the most satisfaction and why?
Winning any world championship is sort of going to stick in your mind has been memorable. But for me, probably Croatia in 1998. I won the individual there, and we also won the team gold as well. So that was sort of the best you can achieve when you can win individual and win a gold medal as well with the team. It's fantastic. But also, it was the end of a fantastic run for me, because I won the World Championships 3 years on the trot. So, to actually win the individual, the 200 peg competition like it is, 3 years on the trot, was some achievement. And I can't see where an angler would probably ever achieve that again. I kept the trophy. I still got the trophy because winning it for 3 years, they gave me the trophy as such. So I've got the trophy in my cabinet here, and it's a thing that I can't see anybody ever achieving again. I mean, even to win the World Championships 5 times individually, I can't foresee in the future, the anglers now are so strong that it'd be very difficult for an individual angler to win it 5 times in the future, I'm sure.
But you managed, so what do you put that down to?
I don't know. I mean, I've always been very, very committed to fishing, and everything I've done from maybe being 6-year-olds revolved around fishing and still does. I don't know. I mean, Sandra always says to me, she says there's not many people as disciplined as what I am. I get up a lot of the time at 6 o'clock in the morning with Sandra. Sandra toddles off to work, and I get stuck in. I mean, I'm lucky that I'm a professional angler, and I get stuck in and I make sure all my rigs and all my tackle's up to scratch. And, it's very, very rare in a 12-month period that I ever stay in bed past 6 o'clock. I'm up early, I make sure everything's right, and my preparation usually is second to none for every event that I fish. So there's obviously what you put into fishing is, or can be, what you get out of it.
You're obviously still very strong on the match scene, and there's no reason why that won't remain so for many years to come. But eventually, even you lose your drive or your edge and will either retire or get dropped, as must ultimately happen to everyone in due course. But being a professional angler, what will you turn to then? Maybe tackle consultancy work or coaching. Have you got any plans?
Now I'm involved with Drennan International, so at the moment I'm involved in a lot of the development of the equipment for Drennan, and it's lovely to work in fishing as well as be involved in it. But looking to the future as such, you look at Stevie Gardner. Stevie Gardner's still in the squad at 60-year-old. He's very, very fit. He works out, obviously, and keeps himself fit. Now, if I can carry on doing a similar thing and stay getting good results, the only way to stay in the team is to keep achieving good results. And for me, that's something that I strive for every year, is to try to keep myself fit, also to get the results that's needed to try to keep myself in the squad. That's what we all work for, because the longer that we can stay in the team, obviously you're gathering more and more knowledge all the time, and as long as everything goes for you all right and you keep fit, then hopefully Mark Downs and Mark Addy will keep picking me.
And as you continue to accumulate more wins and medals, it then becomes even more difficult for those that follow to better what you've achieved.
Yeah, if you look at this year, it couldn't have been any better. We've had a couple of years where, alright, we've still done very well. We finished 5th last year in Czech Republic, and the year before in Italy we finished 5th. Some people might look at that as a failure for the England team, but if you look at the actual teams that's involved now, if you can keep finishing in the top 5, you're doing a very, very good job, because, a lot of these teams are a lot stronger than what they used to be. And of course, we won the year before in Merida, so, with a gold medal 3 years ago, and then to win a gold medal again this year and get such good individuals as well was just really fantastic. It's kept us buzzing again for next year.
What about the future generally then for coarse match angling, both ladies and men, and the degree to which future England teams can continue to hope to be successful? Or will the others start to catch up with England in the near future?
It's more of an even playing field now. It's very, very difficult to win medals. Sometimes the angling press have lost sight of how difficult it is to win medals because we've been so successful. I think they think that it's easy, England every year will win. It's definitely not like that. These teams are very, very strong, and if we relax for 1 minute, we'll drop down the list. There's no doubt about that. So the only way, to stay at top of your game is to keep pushing and pressurising the top teams, and that's, what hopefully we can do. We've got a very, very strong nucleus of anglers at most levels. The ladies are strong, we're strong. The feeder team, they're out in South Africa at the moment. Hopefully, they can come back with a gold medal as well, which will cap off a fantastic year for all the international teams. I know they've been doing very, very well and catching a lot of fish, so let's cross his finger and hope Tommy Pickering can bring back a gold medal with his team as well.
Final question. Who, in your considered opinion, has been the outstanding match angler over your time on the scene? And also, give us a name to watch out for in the future.
Right. I've already mentioned Stevie Gardner has been the benchmark for everybody. His results over the years have been fantastic. He's been in the top 10 individually so many times, and, he's a fantastic team angler. There's no doubt about that. There's quite a big list, to be honest. You look at Dennis White. Dennis White is now quite a bit into his 60s, and Dennis is a Barnsley lad with myself, and Dennis is still fishing now to a very, very good standard. He wins a lot of matches. There is quite a list of people who's been phenomenal over the years. Kevin Ashurst. Kevin, sort of one of the founder members of the England team, were very, very strong in his years at top flight. He were unlucky not to win the World Championships 3 times. He won it in Ireland a good number of years ago and was second to Bob Nudd twice when he could have easily won, lost out on weight. Bob Nudd's been a very, very strong angler over the years. But On the team front, I think you've got to look at Stevie Gardner as probably been the benchmark for all of us at international level. He's really been at top of tree for the period that he's fished.
And the one for the future?
Again, I think there's several, but the one person that stands out for me, and I'm sure that he'll break into the world squad at some point, is probably Matt Godfrey from Worksop. He's been brilliant at junior level. I think he's won at junior level 3 times, so he's already achieved 3 gold medals individually. They've won with the team on a number of occasions. He's absolutely a fantastic angler. He's fast. He's young, is an inspiration to all of us, really. We fished a qualifying match to qualify for the World Club Championships a few weeks ago on the River Ouse, and the fishing was fantastic. Fishing for roach, and he had to catch weights, up to £20 to do well in the sections. And Matt Godfrey, won his section both days and actually won the match on both days, catching over £20 of roach. I mean, he's a very, very strong angler, and to win when all the top anglers were there just shows how strong he is. Just to put it in perspective, I was second in that match, and Matt were quite a bit in front of me. His angling ability at the moment is very strong, and it's just a matter of time and maybe a little more experience, and he'll break through into the world team, I'm sure.
Maybe then I need to be having a chat with him soon too. Now, he also mentioned the World Club Championships, and to round off an exceptional year for you, your club, the Barnsley Blacks, of which you was a team member, also won the 2013 World Club Classic, helping further fill up every section of your impressive unequal CV. My thanks then to Alan Scotthorne for talking it through with us here.